All right. Hello. It is Sunday, May 24th. Once again, doing a live stream session. So far, I think I'm on a 4-day streak. Today, what I'm trying to do is update my HomeLab. So what I'm doing is using my Obsidian notebook that I have made a Samba share on my Linux server. And now, hold on, I think there we go. Had to make sure the stream was live. So what I'm doing is I've set up a Samba share on my agent machine that hosts my Obsidian notebook, so I can access it on my main computer by connecting to that folder. And I've written out all of my notes, or had AI help me write out my notes. Because the idea is a lot of my stack is on my singular machine. I do have a Proxmox host. I have OpenSense. So the idea is I want to start to segment my home network. The whole purpose of Proxmox is that it allows me to back up my servers. By the way, the chat is below, so I'll actually be able to see it this time. And on my Twitch channel, the name finally did get updated. It was showing my whole old Helios Tech name. Now it should show Tech Time Fly. So hey, at least that's working. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me open my Obsidian notebook. There we go. So I connected to my share, and these are all notes that I have. So I have the phased approach for the plan. I have my Proxmox hosts. I want to migrate things over there. VLANs are going to be the big thing. So what I've done is I created a user account on my OpenSense machine, and I've given access to my agent. So SSH access. So it's going to have the ability to SSH and actually manage and create VLANs. And I tested it out last night. So before I show that, let me get my screen ready for that. I'll have to log into my OpenSense machine, and then I'll switch back over. Okay, perfect. Now I need to go to another screen of system, just making sure seeing what it's showing, because OpenSense will show your actual external IP. So just making sure I go to the right scene first. Access users. Yes, and let me edit this. In fact, I will create a brand new account settings administration. Here we go. All right, so what I'm doing now in OpenSense, I've gone to settings administration. This allows you to set up certain access permissions. In this case, if I come down, because I have access to the actual IP address and I want my agent to be able to remote in, I have the enable secure shell. So it's going to be able to SSH in. I could say permit the root user login or not in that case, because it does come with a root user. Permit a password login, or do you want to just have SSH? And I think there was one more setting here. And then here we go also for the authentication. So for sudo permissions. So it is the user account that I created. It's in the wheel group. So it has higher level permissions. It can run sudo commands. So because it's an agent, I need to set it up where it doesn't have a password. So it doesn't prompt for a password when it does sudo commands, because it is going to be doing things such as creating VLANs and things of that nature. So, so after you end up doing that, you come in, and let me create another user real quick. Test 1, 2, 3. Save. Creating a sample user really quick. Okay, and let me edit that user so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so from here I've created a sample user. So this user, by default, it has access to the web interface. You can set up a password. Well, you'll be prompted to set up a password, give them a name and email. I don't have any actual external emails, so that doesn't matter. If I come down over here, this is where you can decide what shell they get access to, terminal-wise, what group they're allowed into, because you can create other groups on OpenSense. So you might want to use it that only has read-only permissions or it doesn't have permissions to do any firewall stuff. So you create your own permissions, put that user in that group. And then you can also set privileges. And then authorized keys. So this is where on my agent machine, I created an SSH key and I pasted the public key here. So you do it through the web interface. And then on that other screen, that's where you saw that I allowed that user actual terminal SSH capability in. So that's the biggest thing, is create an SSH key, put it here, allow the user to be in that higher privileged group, and now my agent's going to actually be able to come in and handle my OpenSense machine. And we're going to do that in a test. Let me first come over and take a look at my firewalls. Go to my interfaces. Go over here and firewall. Okay. So what I'm showing you over here is in OpenSense, you can create VLANs. In order to support that, you do need a managed switch that's going to segment the traffic appropriately. The benefit of VLANs is so that I can have certain traffic on a segment of my network that doesn't interact with another segment. That's very important and helpful, especially when I'm working with vulnerable machines. So right now I just have one VLAN 10 core, which you can then also come in and you can create firewall rules for your VLANs. So what I want to do in this test, we're going to see, can my agent create a VLAN for me? So we're going to come back to VS Code. And then here, I'm going to say, create a sample, well, confirm. Actually, there we go. Confirm you have access to the OpenSense machine. First, I'm just going to make it do a check. And what I have is my Claude MD file. I have this in this folder. I do this for every project. I have a Claude.md file. This gives it information, very helpful information that's loaded into the context. So it knows the file structure. It also knows where things are on the network and what access it does have. And then we also talk about subnets, how we're going to create those, what those ranges would be. So coming back over here on the right-hand side, it did do a test, and it confirmed it does have access to my OpenSense machine. So now what I'm going to do is prompt it to create a demo VLAN just for testing purposes. Create a demo VLAN on a range that is unused. Add firewall rules to allow SSH and HTTPS from any device on the LAN. And so the goal of this, at the end, it should actually create a VLAN and add the appropriate firewall permissions. So let's see. Now, I'm not sure why it came with this action not allowed, but it then does go see, it can list the VLAN, so it can see which VLANs are in use. And it sees there's only one VLAN, VLAN 10 is being used. You did see that. And now it's listening to firewall rules. Hey, Samuel, how's it going? I finally have the chat in front of me, so it's a lot easier to see when those messages come up. Yeah, hope you're doing good today. Working on home networking and using my agent. Right now, I'm testing creating the VLAN and firewall rules, seeing can it do that, because I'm trying to segment my home network or self-hosted applications and not have everything on my primary machine, migrating things to Proxmox. Because I really do like self-hosted applications. So whether I create them myself or download some open source projects, the benefit of Proxmox is that then I can back up those individual machines. I can clone those machines. I can even install an agent on the machine as well. So just really trying to get my home network in a healthy state, because I did have it before, but I ended up blowing it away months ago. And just, hey, a good opportunity to see what an agent can do. Oh, it's all Chinese. Oh, so basically, I have a home firewall. Long story short, and I have the ability to create virtual machines, all on my hardware. So I don't have to pay for Amazon AWS services or things in the cloud. I have all of my own infrastructure, so I can run that all entirely on my home network. And the benefit of the firewall is I can say, oh, this machine should not access this machine, or this IP range of IP addresses should not be accessible from the external internet, or this range of IP addresses. So I get a lot of control essentially, and that includes like my smart lights. I can put them on a segment of my home network that doesn't interact with another segment of my home network. So I'm trying to use the agent to see, can I split this out? How much can I automate with my home network? And hopefully it can monitor it. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. Okay, see where it is so far. It's applying VLAN changes. It says the VLAN tag is now live. So let me go back to the browser and let's do a refresh. I still see VLAN 10. Let me go to my devices. VLAN here. Okay, so it did create it over here, so it might not be assigned yet. Reload the firewall config. Are active. Yeah, because first you have to create a VLAN, which is just a network range. That creates a virtual interface, and then you can create firewall rules for that interface. Okay, so it says everything is live, so let's go back. Let's refresh. There it is, VLAN 99 right there. So it now has created it, and it's using this IP range. So it'll be 10.0.99.1 all the way to .254. If I then come to my firewall, come to the rules, and let's take a look. And the rules are applied from a top-bottom perspective. So here we're saying allow all internal traffic on the VLAN, so anything on that range can communicate with each other. Block all other VLANs. So other segment outside of this network should not be able to access this VLAN. I get like 3 tokens per second. I'm not familiar with Jan AI, but do you have a GPU? Because local agents require a lot of power. Even with my RTX 3060 for intensive jobs, it's going to be a lot slower than the cloud agents. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm using Claude because it really is just rules based. And again, I can come in here and I can double check all the firewall stuff here. And I've tried using what is that? I tried using Olama and it had issues doing local permissions or things like that. I might play around with that again. So yeah, you're definitely going to want to get a G if you do want to truly have your own local agents. It just needs that extra processing power that it doesn't get from a CPU by itself. So yeah, so hopefully you should see definitely a performance increase once you do add a GPU to your setup. Um, okay. So this is SSH right here. So we see that port is open, port 80 is open, 443, it can reach DNS. So, and these are on the LAN network. So we can see from my range to the LAN. So this firewall, this VLAN is set up in that case. Let me take a look to see. I'm going to open up a terminal. Let me do Olama list. I have Gemma 4. Hey, JMD, how's it going? Let's see. Yeah, so I do have Olama running, but I haven't been playing with it a lot lately. So I might, see what things I can do locally as well with that. But right now, kind of just using Claude based off the instructions that I currently have. Um, Okay, so that's a sample VLAN that it did create, and it was able to create firewalls. So that's great in my opinion. So next, what I would say, what is the migration plan for setting up for Proxmox actually? Proxmox. Because again, everything's on my primary host machine, so I'm ready to move that out. While it's doing that, if I come back over here and I do 192.168, 1.201. This is going to be my Proxmox server. Let me log in really quick. Yeah, so right now I just have one node essentially, but I have two additional machines, so it's going to be a 3-node cluster. I just need to bring those back online. But again, I have the ability. These are Linux container machines essentially, and I have the ability to back them up. I can do a replication. So normally, what I do, for the most part, I usually have a service per container, so I can do backup snapshots. I can update DNS records. Very helpful as well when I'm playing around with vulnerable virtual machines. I can put them on their own boxes. In addition, if you come over here to the network, you can add multiple interfaces, but if I come here and click edit, I can then create or select what VLANs I want to have added to the system or have it access. For VLANs, it's been a while since I've done this. Let me come over to network. Yeah, this is where you have to create a new Linux bridge. So that's how I have this VLAN over here, VLAN 10. And I have to update my switch, my managed switch as well, because it starts off there. The first thing you do is in your managed switch, you need to create your VLAN lanes. And then you go to Proxmox where you create your actual VLAN interfaces. And then, OpenSense where you do that. And then the third item is in Proxmox, it needs to have a virtual Linux bridge that is aware of that VLAN traffic. So 3 different locations where you set that up, but then that allows you to segment your network entirely. Let's go back to Visual Studio Code. Let's see here. Let's come back over here to the phases. It's pretty much probably going to be the same thing as my my markdown file here. Okay, so the first thing I do need to do is I do need to go to my managed switch. So I'm going to go log in over there. Give me a moment. So let's just go ahead and open up another tab for that. Now my managed switch doesn't have SSH capability, so I have to do this part manually. And get back over to screen overlay. Then we come over here. I'm using a TP-Link SG108E. I think it has 8 ports, I want to say. Let's come over here to the VLAN. Yeah, it has 8 ports. So what I do is come over to the 102.1Q VLAN. So you can have port-based VLAN, which means every single port can be its own VLAN. But I'm using it where I'm really separating it out based off the IP ranges. So I come over here and I already have some VLANs set up. because downstairs the setup is I have a managed switch and then I have an unmanaged switch. My unmanaged switch carries my regular LAN traffic. My managed switch, the one with the 8 ports, actually, I think I have a diagram. That's actually will be better. Let me see if I have. Yes, it'll make this a little more screen only. There you go. So here's my managed switch and here's my different ports. So port one plugs it. I plug in a 24 port, I think it's 24 port, unmanaged switch. So that means everything that's hardlined into my LAN network, my PS5, my computer, my wireless mesh system, all of that just plugs into that first port. I had a Raspberry Pi. I'm no longer using that because I'm going to put things in my Proxmox environment. Port number 3 is OpenSense. That's my firewall. So it has 2 NIC cards on it. One that comes in from my Ethernet internet provider. The other one goes out to my local internal home network. And then I have 3 Proxmox hosts. Right now, only 1 is up. A Proxmox sandbox environment, that's actually a laptop. So you could install Proxmox entirely on a laptop and run it as long as you have enough resources. I think I had an old Acer Nitro 7 laptop, had about 500 gigabytes of RAM, a 1080 GPU. And the thing about 8 cores, I want to say. So it had enough to run it. And what I ended up doing was taking the battery out of my laptop and just plugging it into the wall because otherwise because I'm having it run 24/7. So I took the battery out completely, hardlined the Ethernet, and then I installed Proxmox, and then there's a configuration in Linux where you can say never sleep, essentially. So that's how you're able to use Proxmox on an old laptop that can run your virtual machines. And it was running very good. And I think I still have it up. I haven't played around with it in a bit. And then last but not least, I have the U bridge. Oh, so sorry. No, 500 gig, no, not of RAM, hard disk space. For RAM, I want to say I had 32 gigabytes. So it was more than enough because most of the stuff that I ran was lightweight, self-hosted applications. So it didn't need to use a lot of power, but yeah, 500 gigabytes of hard drive space, SSD storage, and 32 gigabytes of RAM. And then on the 8th port, I have my Hue bridge. So that's for my smart lights. So ideally, I want to separate that out from my main traffic. Yeah, 500 gigabytes of RAM, that'd be amazing. And then I have my unmanaged switch. So, and all of this is just really, it's a good idea to keep track of your home network / home lab because you're going to forget. So documentation is very important. So this is where, not 24 port, 16 port unmanaged switch. So I just label what every single port is because that's very important when it comes to VLAN because you want to know what ports can carry what VLAN traffic. So I can see where my PS5 is, where my bedroom stuff is, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I bought that. That's probably a 5-year-old laptop, by the way. And it's functional. Like I said, it had an internal GPU, a 1080. Yeah, so more than enough. You don't always need the latest and greatest because the great thing is Proxmox is very lightweight. It doesn't use a lot of resources because the operating system is a level 1 hypervisor. It works as the level 1 layer for a virtual machine, and everything underneath it just uses the resources it needs. So even though you might have an application that say it has a requirements of 16 gigabytes of RAM and 4 cores, that might be under heavy load. What will happen is Proxmox, you can still set that up, but it's only going to use the resources it needs. So you can always see whether or not you're consuming more resources than it's available on the host. So, oh, well, thank you. Let's see. I'm trying to find subnets and services. So subnets and services. So this is ideally, or at least when I did my first round of it, and you can probably see by the names, I'm very mythology inspired in my naming conventions. I love Greek and Norse mythology. So we have the name of my host machines for Proxmox. So Asgard, Olympus, Valhalla, Elysium, Tardis, Midgard, blah, blah, blah. So they have their IP addresses, what VLANs they would potentially be on. I think this might have been No, okay. So this was going to be at the root 10.0.0. Um, and then I just do like a 10 network segmentation. So they'd all be on the same network, just this first one would be on 10.20.30, blah, blah, blah. Here is my network overview. Again, it's been a while since I've looked at this, so just double checking. Yeah, so I said my host machines are going to be on this range. The networking. So down here, what we're talking about is how how I would be categorizing my self-hosted application. So my networking devices would be on their own subnet, as well as my IoT monitoring and logging, blah, blah, blah. Networking devices, and gonna see if we can do this today is the goal, is to move my Pi-hole and my Nginx Docker containers, which currently reside on the root agent machine, like all of, matter of fact, hold on. I will just go ahead and open it up. And that's going to be my agent OS. So all of these applications, all of these reside on my agent machine. There's no real segmentation. It's just a folder with all of these applications that I can access. And these are all Dockerized containers. So I want to move these to my Proxmox system. So I would want to first start off with my Nginx and my Pi-hole containers to move those over. Because again, if the purpose is if my Nginx becomes corrupted, I want to be able to restore from a backup or things like that. So move that off of this physical device instead into my Proxmox environment. Now, let me go back to the diagram. Well, actually, I do have a diagram, but let's see. DevOps, yes. I know you can run Git like a version of Git Hub locally. It's like Git Gia or something like that. It's very similar. So that Jenkins I would run locally. Matter of fact, I think Jenkins is up. If I go to my application, Jenkins. Yeah. So, and this is on that host machine too. So I'd want to separate this out. The reason being is some of my DevOps stuff might be interacting with vulnerable applications that I'm going to be testing because I do want to learn malware. I do want to test some other intentionally vulnerable apps. So I want to make sure my DevOps, it will be a VLAN or it'll be a VLAN, but also be a firewall rule where I'll make sure certain machines can access certain applications that might be vulnerable, but those apps should not be accessible across my home network. It's kind of the idea. Let's see. And that includes security scanners as well. I'm going to try to deploy some local security scanners. In addition, I've been working on with AI. Let's see. I've been working on like creating my own CVE scanner. I'm not gonna say really my own. I'm kind of using some open source tools, but I'm just trying to understand what does it mean to create your own security dashboard. So this is something the tool did create for me. I architectured it out. Again, I say I'm not a developer. I'm just really planning it out. Really being a project manager is kind of the idea. And so I can onboard applications. The idea is I can scan Docker containers, local paths, GitHub, and yes, I know Trivy had a recent security issue because they're connected. So that's why I'm trying to work on my own open source vulnerability scanners. That's where you see ASV. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll see if I can. Yeah, I deployed Git Gia. I want to say it's Git Gia. Matter of fact, let's take a look real quick. Git Gia. Or Gitia, I guess. But yeah, they do have an open source version of this that you can self host, and it's supposed to be very similar to GitHub, is the idea. But I haven't played around with it in about a year, but you can deploy this in Proxmox. And while I'm here, really quick, if you're not aware, if you are interested in Proxmox, Proxmox itself does have helper scripts where it can automatically create machines for you. So basically all these are scripts. So the idea is, for example, Git Gia. I keep saying Gia, but it's Git EA. um, yeah, so it had a script here. And this is because I'm very comfortable with Proxmox and I know what these scripts are doing. But the idea is that you'd run this on your host machine and it would create automatically your virtual machine. So it has a lot of these scripts for common applications that you can easily and quickly get up and running, like Jellyfin if you have a media server and all these type of things. So that's going to be Proxmox scripts, essentially. This this right here, well, Proxmox itself runs on Linux, if that's what we're talking about. Yeah, so if I come in and I go to the shell on my host machine, Asgard, this is a Linux machine. So Proxmox runs on that. So the idea is, and you don't have to have like crazy amount of hardware. Like I said, I'd probably say 32 gigabytes for cores. What you do is you install this as an operating system on top. So you go through a full install, and then it has no GUI interface within the actual server. It's all terminal based, but it has a web UI. So that's how you access it. And then from there, you have the ability to create virtual machines. Yes, I don't know why I said Git Gia, but yeah. Um, yeah, and so from there, once you become comfortable with Proxmox, I would say Proxmox scripts is more an advanced thing. Is once you understand what it's doing more, usually what you might want to say if you're self-hosting stuff, hey, is there a script to self-host something? And you can go over here, and it does have groupings by categories as well. So, for example, network and security. It has all these type of machines that you can deploy, and it takes care of the script for you. But if you're familiar or comfortable with deploying your own applications, I would obviously start there first. Normally what I'll do is I'll just install an application per machine, but of course you can create a full virtual machine. So you have a lightweight Linux container type machine, but then you have a full VM instance where you can also get a GUI interface. So you could deploy Windows within a Proxmox environment. And sometimes that's what I do as well, especially as I'm learning malware. Some things you'll want to test on a Windows machine. So I'll just spin up a virtual machine for Windows and do some testing there. All right. Coming back, let's go back to the notes. Authentication. So I do want to have local authentication. I've used TinyAuth and Pocket ID. That allows me to use my GitHub account even for self-hosted applications. I just need to have a callback URL that is accessible. So that's where I'm talking about having a domain name for my home network. The domain name will resolve to internal IP addresses. So even if a person on the internet gets access to the domain name, it's not going to do anything for them. This is entirely a way for external services to have a mapping. So when it comes back to my machine knows where the domain name goes to as far as like an IP address. Monitoring and logging, this is probably going to be more advanced. I'm going to save this, but I do like a tool called Uptime Kuma. Basically, this allows you to have status. It does a periodic poll or status that you can point to URLs. So the whole purpose is I'm going to have a lot of self-hosted applications. It'd be really nice if there's a web interface where I can quickly go to see what's up and what's down. That's the purpose for that. And then all this other stuff is really logging and monitoring. Task management apps, blah, blah, blah. So you can see how I've broken down. And this is obviously with home networks, you want to plan a lot before you just implement. So this is what this is a lot of planning. Let me see if I have my diagrams up and running. Yes, perfect. That's some real estate. Let's see what this one was. That's my old domain name that I had before, HomeLab84.com. But the idea is how it works is you have the external DNS. So you might buy your domain name from Namecheap, GoDaddy, whatever it is. But you have an external name that's accessible. So when it looks for anything, in this case, this example, HomeLab84.com, it comes to my internal reverse proxy. So that would be my Nginx. My Nginx will then route correctly. And with the DNS, I use Pi-hole. So that's what maps a domain name to certain IP addresses. And then that allows me to have subdomains. So I can have proxmox.homelab84.com, Pi-hole.homelab84.com. So that's the benefit being able to use that. This is more of an advanced diagram here. Let's take a look. And let me add some more screen real estate. So this is how, at least how I had it set up before, at least the plan was. So obviously the internet comes in from somewhere, in this case through the ISP. It comes into my modem, which then comes into OpenSense on the WAN port or interface. From there, that's the first port, because my OpenSense box, these have two interface cards or network interface cards. One comes in from the internet, so you can get an actual external IP address, and then you have the other interface that goes to your internal network components. So on that secondary network interface, it goes through my LAN, sorry, and then it goes through my managed switch here. And my managed switch, like I said, it has 8 ports. Let's see, do I have them all? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So these are all my ports that I have over here. That's that managed switch, that TP link. And then what I'm showing here is the ports have access to VLAN ranges. Most of these have access to all the VLANs. That's where firewall stuff is going to become more important. And this is my Proxmox host machine. This is on 201. I have a backup server, 205. Zoom out a little bit. But you can see those blue boxes, those are my Proxmox machines. In an ideal scenario, if I had those set up, or my regular host machines, that includes I could have a Pi-hole machine where previously I had AdGuard, but that's not going to be the case. That's going to become a container. And then so for my managed switch, what we then have is that port 1. That's what I was saying, my IP addresses on my home network. Or sorry, not my IP addresses, but my hardline Ethernet is port 1. And that's entirely on a managed switch. So you're able to take one Ethernet port, connect it to my managed switch, take the other one, connect it to my unmanaged switch. So it's able to share that connection across those devices. And then from there, I have my Wi-Fi mesh system, which is a 3-pod Eero mesh that just shares the Wi-Fi connection across my home. Then I have my main network of devices. My home network consists of my PS3, iPhone, blah, 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 has all that stuff. These are, I don't know why I had iPhone and hardline Ethernet. That actually should be on Wi-Fi. I have a guest network too. That's a good thing with my Wi-Fi mesh system. And most Wi-Fi routers, you can have a main Ethernet or Wi-Fi network, and then a secondary one. Have a guest network. Yeah, so that's just a visual breakdown, kind of how that flow is. And then the last diagram, these are a breakdown of the subnet and services we've kind of already gone over, but this is what it looks like in the applications ideally that I'd want to have. So this Ceph storage, this is the ability for you to share storage across your Proxmox host machines. So for example, all 3 of these, Elysium, Asphodel, and Valhalla, they all have 1 terabyte of SSD storage. So instead of me creating a virtual machine on a specific machine and it only have access to that 1 terabyte, what's able to do with Ceph storage, you're able to share it so that 1 terabyte actually becomes 3 terabytes. And you're able to move your virtual machines around easily because it's all sharing. It's sharing that storage. So it doesn't matter where your virtual machine is really. Yeah, that's the idea. I had it up and running before, but then I decided to just blow it away, and I do things the hard way. Sometimes I just like to see, can I do things? But yeah, that would be the idea. So again, I would be able to have this crazy internal network of self-hosted applications on these 3 machines. I bought these off of eBay, and they were only like $100, well, maybe 150 for the lot of 3. They're Dell. Actually, let me see if I can find it. Dell Proxmox machines, mini, eBay. Those look to be newer. These ones right here. There we go. Let's go to eBay. And this was a few years ago. And this is also a lot of 5. And of course, it depends on how much RAM or CPU. But yeah, the Dell Mini Micros, that's what I got. So I got a lot of 3 of these for underneath $200 about 2 to 3 years ago. And so these are my Proxmox host machines. So the idea is I would have, and I think I have 2 larger ones. One of these works as my firewall, and then I have another one as a backup. So technically I have 5 machines. The benefit is, again, I'm not having to pay for cloud infrastructure. All of this would be local to me, so I can scale out as needed. And I think it's just cool to host self-hosted applications, right? Yeah, so again, this is just breaking down the different categories of machines. So authentication, networking, documentation, monitoring, security, DevOps, and task management is the idea. So yeah, so that is basically the home network, and I've just created journals as well. So as I was working on my home network, I just did some journaling there. So all right, let us come back over here. Let's see, what is the plan for migrating Nginx and Pi-hole Docker containers into Proxmox local. So now what I'm going to see, this is the goal, is trying to see, can I get it, because it has access, excuse me, to Proxmox. I'm wanting it to create my virtual machines because I do have my Nginx and Pi-hole machines and everything else on this, but I'm starting off to see, can I migrate those over? And if so, then we should be able to see those in the Proxmox server and be able to like set up backup schedules on all those type of things. But now this is me inquiring the information against the agent. And it's just looking through some files here. Let's say while it's doing that, let's just go ahead and go to one of my applications as well. Let's take a look at Cypher Feed. This is basically like a daily, almost kind of like a newsletter for me. But the idea is like for me to get updates on what's happening in the cybersecurity industry. So let's see any news stories today. By TechCrunch, I tried Amazon's Bee wearable and I'm intrigued and slightly creeped out. Like other AI wearables, Amazon's Bees offers a odd combination of convenience and privacy anxiety. Let's just go ahead and read the article. Excuse me. And so what's happening is it found a trending article. And so this is the title of the article. What it's doing now, it's finding secondary resources. So now it doesn't, it's a lightweight call to get the actual article because it's doing just a web scrape, but then it's going through and it's getting other sources to then create this content that I can read to summarize. And I'm going to change this to my magazine view, a little easier on the eyes, hopefully. Let's see. It's an AI powered wrist recorder. It captures audio throughout the day. Yeah, there's been a few devices that have done that. There was one that you wore, I think, like as a necklace or something like that. I know Marquez Brown, I think he did a review on that. I see that in Micro Center every once in a while. Pair the device with a mobile app, input basic personal information, and begin recording. Now, these recording devices are just going to be like at this point, how do companies like keep any of their information internal? Like you can just record your meetings, right? Struggles to identify speakers automatically. Okay, then you have the conclusion. And this one didn't have any secondary resources, it just had the primary one. And then I can generate a YouTube summary if I wanted to talk about this more. It just kind of breaks it down into highlights. Let's come over here. I think I read this one earlier. Uh, Ghost CMS SQL injection. Document the compromise over 700 domains, including Harvard, Oxford, DuckDuckGo. And there's the CVE, so then I can go and, look at that directly. It should be at the bottom as well. Yeah, meta glasses, like all this stuff that we're just recording constantly all the time. Like think about how many background images or videos that you're probably in. Like if you are out in the world, you're captured somewhere. And then it breaks down the multi-stage attack for it. They exploited the CVE to extract the admin API credentials. Then they used stolen API keys. That looks like it's 5 stages of this. So that's what we call a multi-stage payload. Is that you may not have a it's not just one attack vector. You use an entry point or something to pivot, and then you go to the next target or the next stage and the next stage until finally you either get access, or whatever your target is. So sometimes it's not just one thing; it's multiple things that can lead to a vulnerability. And then I can click this technical analysis as well as to get a deeper dive from a. Actually, let's go ahead and click that real quick. See what that looks like. And then after that, I'm going to go back over to the Visual Studio Code to see what it's doing. And the idea about this one is just it helps to break it down in a different perspective, like based on your audience, more of an executive summary, if you will. And then I have the technical analysis of that CVE. Again, I can go and look at that directly to verify. Breaks down the attack, gives you some examples as well, or in this case, this looks to be a potential threat vector. So it's giving you the URL endpoint, and you can see there is a SQL statement that's being used right there. So that's how you can have SQL injection. If it interprets that, it's going to go to the underlying database, and you can do manipulation that way. So this is good from a practical standpoint of what actually is this attack doing. So in my industry, this is something that's very helpful. And then the MITRE attack, these are just mappings on certain security vulnerabilities. So yeah. So this is all for me, just completely locally. So it's a good way for me to kind of keep track of certain things. All right, let's go back to Visual Studio Code. And let's see what the output was. Current state, Pi-hole already a Proxmox LXC. That's a Docker container. It's a redeployment. Yeah, I guess I do still have Pi-hole. It was one that I deployed manually. Nginx. Yep, hasn't been deployed yet. Both land on that VLAN network. It's sure the bridge exists, and it does, but I can verify that in a moment. Generate the LAN TLS. What's not documented? Services, no, and services. All right, it's going to create a run book, but let me see. Do you have access to the Proxmox host machine of Asgard? If so, can you see the VLAN bridges? No, that article summary, currently it's also using Claude. It's using Haiku. If I come back over here, I could have it run locally. I just haven't wired it into Olama yet. But you can see right here, I'm using Open Router as the provider, and I'm using Claude Haiku 4.5 because it's very lightweight, doesn't cost much. If I come over to Open Router, I was having issues seeing the costs yesterday. Let's see if that's been fixed. There we go. Yes. So you can see this is like less than 2 cents, and depends. Like some I have like it's even less than a cent. So with Open Router, you have the ability to use different models. You can even come over here to a routing situation, and you can define your models in a fallback approach. So that includes free models as well. And there's always a trade-off between free models and paid models, but with Open Router, I've been able to cut down on a significant portion of my costs. And I also consider this a part of my learning efforts. Some things you really can't do with local models, at least the last time I used them. I know they have improved Gemma 4. I think there's been a big improvement on that. So right now I'm mostly using Claude Haiku. But I I do probably need to come in here and do some tweaking to my open router usage. But I do like that you can always come in and see the cost. Let's see for the past. Let's see for the past week. $1.41. And I think this also includes some of my other applications that might be using it. So yeah, not bad. But yeah, I could update in order to. I just don't have a model switching capability in that site that I showed. So once I had that, other items that were created, I should be able to see the provider as well as the model. Then I can see the tokens in and the tokens out. Let's see. Let's host machine. Okay. So I asked it, did it have access to my Proxmox host machine? And it says it does, and it can see the VLAN bridges. So that is great. So that means it has access to OpenSense and it has access to Proxmox. So it should have the ability to create the firewalls appropriately across. All right. Begin. All right. Anything left to brainstorm or plan prior to the migration for Nginx or Pi-hole? I like to ask these questions before telling it just to do something, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to narrow that scope of what it's expecting to accomplish. So I just wouldn't say, hey, go do this migration. I'm just verifying. So it goes from here to hopefully here, where it's very specific. And right now it's just listing the Docker containers on that machine. I do have this DaVinci Postgres database because I've done some video editing with DaVinci, and you can also have a self-hosted location of your DaVinci project. So that allows you to connect to a network, so I can continue working on a video editing regardless of whether I'm on my PC or my laptop. So that's why you kind of saw that. All right, it's listing the DHCP leases. And the leases, those come from OpenSense. So OpenSense uses DNS mask queue for the IP address leases as well as DHCP. So I can always go into my OpenSense machine and I give a very specific IP address. Let me see if I can go over there, show you what that looks like. I think I took it down, so give me a moment. I need to switch to my camera so I can go back over to OpenSense. So let's go to system settings, administration. Okay. And then we're going to go back to our screen overlay here. There we go. And then we come down to services, DNS mask queue, and then you go to leases. So the idea is, as I stand up networking hardware, it can either have a static or a dynamic IP address. So for example, I think when I hooked up my PlayStation, usually depending on the vendor, you might just be able to quickly search by the name. So Sony, I can search for that so I can see the MAC addresses of it. And so I can see what's my PlayStation portal, as well as I can give a name to my regular PlayStation. So this is where you can come in and I can see the PlayStation portal is static. By the way, I love the PlayStation portal. Like, I just wish they had like HDMI out. Of course, I'd make it a little bit more like the Switch, but I've had a lot of fun on it. I do know the PlayStation Network is, I think they're going to have a price increase, state of the world and whatnot. But just being able to quickly pick up a video game, play it around my house. Sometimes I'll play it on the patio. I love the PlayStation portal. So just had to say that. Not a sponsored video, by the way. I'm just a gamer. And then for my PlayStation, I have a dynamic IP. I can come in here. I could give it a static IP as well. And I can give it a dedicated host name. So the benefit of having a firewall is you get to have a lot of control of the devices on your network. And then if something does plug into my network, I can come in here and I can see what the IP address is. So. Okay, let's see what it came back with. I was asking it, hey, anything else we need before we begin the migration? See or redeploy. I'm going to say, let's say, do I want to redeploy fresh? It's also about Pi-hole. DNS records does Pi-hole need on day one? Thanks. Which opens from local DNS to Pi-hole. That means adding a DNS report reporting to. Because OpenSense is using Pi-hole as the DNS. So what happens is traffic comes in, or traffic's trying to exit my OpenSense machine. OpenSense will refer to Pi-hole, which is also how I'm able to block ads, and I can refer to things on my local network because those things have specific records. Okay. TLS strategy. Device. And I'll probably start with mkcert. Okay. I'm going to say Pi-hole should disregard the Pi-hole LXC machine currently in Proxmox. This will be a fresh deployment. Nginx should use mkcert for the certificates. Anything else? And we already have the bridge method. And it's asking me how do I want to deploy, because I have different options. I can install Nginx directly. I can install it as a Docker container. I can use the script that comes from Proxmox community scripts as well. Versus manual install. Deploy Nginx and Pi-hole manually on those machines. Well, apt install Nginx and Pi-hole on in the Proxmox environment. Well, the benefit of the script, well, yeah, I'm just going to do that right now and just see how it does. No Proxmox community script usage at this time. I'm trying to think. I might also need to provide it. Oh, and add your SSH key to those machines. Any further questions? Again, just making sure before I have it, because I'm going to try to use the goal command. Just making sure that we're tightening up everything and expectations before we actually have it go ahead and run and do its thing. Excuse me. Grab some water. Okay, so now it has some follow-up questions for me, it looks like. Should Nginx proxy on day one? What should Nginx proxy on day one? That's a bad sentence. Nothing else is deployed in VLAN 10 yet. The only real candidate is Proxmox at. Oh, what should Nginx proxy? Okay, gotcha. I was reading that incorrect. So Proxmox only, Proxmox and Pi-hole, both management services from day one. Absolutely. DNS cutover. After Pi-hole is deployed, should I also cut OpenSense DNS over to it as part of this task? Correct. And then the LXC machine, which is a container image. Which OS template for both LXCs? So do I want to use Debian or Ubuntu? Debian 12. Will you actually it should be on Debian 14, I believe, or Debian. Sorry, Debian latest version 13. Trixie. That came out. Oh, actually, that just came out last month, May 16th. End of support June 30th, 2030. So I will go with the previous version for now. Okay. Submit answers. Oh, wrong one. And I was just thinking about it, and I can see I've used about half of my context right now. Hopefully, it finishes before using all the context. Otherwise, it will compact the conversation. Now, the benefit well, I like to think of compacting is that you're in a flow. Like if you were a developer or a coder, that you're in a flow state. Like you're going through, you're making your code changes. Like everything is just you're locked in, right? But then you get a phone call, somebody comes to your desk, or if you had to go to lunch, you can continue because you kind of know what you were working on, but you lose that flow state. So that's what kind of compacting is, and that is the benefit of having your Claude.md file. If I preview this because it's in Markdown format, what happens is after the conversation is compacted by Claude, it will reload if there is a Claude.md file in here. Also, if you have an agent file, so if you're using other applications, it doesn't read agent MD files by default, but you can do a semi-link and make it a Claude.md file, and it will pick that up. So even if it does compact, if I've given it a good Claude file, it understands the structure of the application, it understands things that it should have access to. It should help it when it has to come back from that compaction in order to continue the task. So Claude.md files are very helpful for that use case. All right, so let's see here. Scroll back up a little bit. And it looks like it's already added to dos. I didn't ask it to do that. That is great. That might be a part of like overall steps that I normally do, that it's kind of added that as part of its process. That's one of the things too with these agents. The more that you use them, the better that they're going to get, especially if you tell them, hey, remember this, or hey, always create a to-do list or something like that. Can't remember if I did that specifically, but just saying it's good that I can see this here. So it's updating its to-do list. It checked for the templates, downloads them if they're missing. What that means, if I come over to Proxmox and I come over to the host machine, and I come down here to local LVM, or is it just local? Sorry, just local, the host machine. This is where you can download ISO images as well as container templates. So that's what it was looking for, to see does it already has a container template for Debian 12. Otherwise, it would go ahead and download that. You can provide a URL to download it along with performing a hash check. You provide that checksum, and it would just make sure what you downloaded is correct or matches that hash. And you can also download full ISO images as well. So this is where I was saying you can download a Windows image actually, and then create a virtual machine because it would prompt you for that ISO image. So if I had a Windows ISO image, I can run that. Hey, CPT button, doing good. Let's go ahead and come back over here. Hope you're having a good Sunday. Just doing some HomeLab setup using AI to assist. Well, actually, it's running it. I'm just giving it guidance because it has access to my firewall as well as access to my Proxmox machine. Obviously, I would not do this in a corporate environment, but this is my hardware. So if things do get blown away. I can just recreate this stuff. And this is also a part of the tech education, or my AI education, I would say. You want to do it with real world scenarios. So seeing, can it actually handle my firewall, create VLANs, create firewall rules, and then for my Proxmox system, can it create virtual machines? So trying to automate as much of my home network as possible, because I do enjoy having self-hosted applications. I was showing my diagram earlier. I'll come back over, and actually I need to do that in my Obsidian notebook. Um, so just diagrams of my home network. This is just overall how DNS works. I'm most likely, I may have an external domain name, although right now I think I'm going to use mkcert to have an internal domain name. That just means on the machines on my home network, I need to make sure that I add the root certificate to the trusted store in that network, in that case. That also means, because I did not mention it, but I'm going to have Tailscale installed as well. That's going to allow me, because it uses OpenVPN, I'm going to be able to access my self-hosted applications when I'm away from my home as well. So I just don't have that documented. And then this is just an overall overview of my home network structure, where I have the internet come from my ISP. I have a managed switch, an unmanaged switch, and I would have multiple Proxmox host machines. And then this is just the idea of self-hosted applications that I want to have. So I want to have some authentication servers, some networking, which I'm currently working on Pi-hole and Nginx. All these type of things. So it's going to be a very big self-hosted environment on my Proxmox machines or infrastructure. And it's just really good to document these things. Let's go ahead and close that. Let's see where it is so far. And see, of course, did it run into any issues? Listing, checking the VM. We'll use 106 for Pi-hole, 107 for Nginx. Both containers are created. Let's go ahead and just take a look. Let's go back to Proxmox. Matter of fact, there you go. There's the Pi-hole machine. There's the Nginx machine that it did create. This AI agent, that's from a demo yesterday. It didn't do anything with that. So 106 and 107 it has created thus far. It did add its Jesus. Adding its SSH key to the machine. It noticed that the sudoers directory doesn't exist, so it's going to create that. Added the SSH key. Added, worked. Install Pi-hole, right under tenant config. Yeah, so this has been working really well. Nginx is running. It's going to install mkcert. This, you can see it created the certificate. Said it failed to save, so let's see what happened there. It did create it. It's in place. Remove. Then it's adding the domain names. So piehole.lan, proxmox.lan, nginx.lan. Zero DNS enable, server DNS. And now checking on DNS. It'll add the root forward zone. Okay. It says proxmox.lan is working. Okay, so that's looking good. One thing that I'll have to do is I'll have to go get the certificate from Nginx. And I should be able to do that by SSHing into it. Actually, hold on. Let's see. It looks like it just finished. What was deployed? So Pi-hole and Nginx, they're on VLAN 10 with SSH keys. We have Proxmox and Pi-hole. Proxmox does point to the correct IP address. And then we have the Pi-hole. And then it updated OpenSense Unbound changes. install the certificate. Okay. So should be able, Nginx is on this device. So from this machine, I should be able to access it. So SSH, by default, it should be root. Oh, wait, hold on. SSH I. Interesting. Okay, hold on. I'm just going to ask it, can you copy the MK certs here? And I'll download them and place on my machines. Excuse me 1 second. Sorry about that. I had to cough for a moment. Okay, both files are at certs. And what that just means is I should be able to actually, can you provide a full terminal command for downloading and installing on Windows PowerShell from this machine? And what I need to do is I need to manage my computer certificates. And that's going to be some sensitive info, so give me 1 moment. I need to go to my trusted root certificates. And I need to delete my previous certificates. Okay. There we go. And we're back. Cybersecurity, I will definitely say, is a really good career field to be in right now. I've been doing it for about 14 years now. Only had two to 3 years as an actual developer. I got burnt out very quickly as a developer. With cybersecurity, I like it because, sorry, it's always something new to learn. There's no one attack vector. There's several. And that's why it was important to me. Actually, let's see. 1 second. This is because I've changed my my Pi-hole stuff. Okay, well, sorry. Well, I'm about to get everything back up and running, so it's broken for a reason. But you always are going to have to research and learn. If you're a person that likes um, teaching people about things from a cybersecurity researcher, what you're doing is you're really trying to explain to developers and organizations of, hey, this is why this is a problem. This is why you need to fix this. It's very important, and it's very rewarding in my opinion. MITRE attack. Let's see. And this is a good research. This is a good resource. If you're not familiar with it, the MITRE attack sequence. This just explains different attack patterns. It also has information on different threat actors as well. It's a lot of information, but this is something that as a cybersecurity researcher, you would definitely come across. I will put this into the chat if you don't have it. Restream. Settings. I need to go to chat. There we go. But it's just being up to date on what's going on in the industry, and it comes from whether you're doing. I do application security, so mine is more about what vulnerabilities exist in code or web applications. But of course, you have network security and other things. So it's very broad as far as the industry. So you might be very early on deciding what you are interested in, but this is still a good link to have regardless. And then there's also pen testing as well. If you want to be on that side of the house where you're as a ethical hacker, where companies are paying you to test their infrastructure, test their applications, and then you're trying to get in, and then you generate a report. That's a good field as well. Although, of course, it's becoming more and more automated with these AI tools. Look up information on Claude Mythos, where it's been detecting vulnerabilities in old software out there, and it's creating 0 days for things that have been around for decades. So, well, it depends. Like I said, that's where it depends in cybersecurity. What interested you? What interests you? So it's a very broad field, right? For me, I like application security because I used to be a developer, right? So I know under the SDLC process, and I do like reading and writing code, although I do scripting. So for me, it's very interesting to see a vulnerability that targets code that you've seen before, and it does it in a different way. So I'm used to doing either a manual review as well as automated review with tools to spit out a report. But then to be an expert in the field, you have to go beyond reports. You just can't say this is a vulnerability because this thing told you. Because the developer might say, well, we believe it's not a vulnerability. So what happens when you have that contention? That's where it's up to you. It's your responsibility as a security researcher to go beyond just reports. You might have to spin up a sample application to test to see is that vulnerability actually exploitable, because you are the expert is the idea, where you're supposed to be the expert. So from an application security standpoint, that's kind of what I do. I use these tools. I generate reports. I do demos as well. I talk with developers. I talk with leadership. But then you have several different sectors of cybersecurity as well. Yes, exactly. Right. Yeah, that's why I think self-hosting is it's just fun too, from a lab perspective of, hey, can I run this? Right. What does it mean to install this application? What are some troubleshooting techniques? And that's where I want to start creating more videos as well, because there's a lot that I know about Proxmox, but I really haven't created a ton of videos on it. And it's just fun, like to set up your own metrics as well, using something such as Grafana or Portainer to access or see the status of your Docker containers. Because what I ended up doing at one point, I took an old iPad tablet and I just mounted it on my wall. So it's almost like I had this lightweight analysis dashboard across my home network. So I can see what services were up. I can quickly inspect to see my CPU usage and RAM usage on on my different machines as well. So I want to get back to that, and I'm going to try to document it a little bit better. But back to your question, um, if you're still early, like if you're not in cybersecurity yet, excuse me, um, I would probably focus. You have to kind of be in the community. So this is where, hey, follow some Twitter or X users or threads, do some YouTube video watching as well. Because I wouldn't tell you, hey, just go jump into a certificate. I've been in the game for 14 years. I don't have a single certificate to my name. I've just been doing this long enough. And I really don't need to go down that path. Not saying it's not beneficial, absolutely is, but it's not a absolute requirement on getting a job in this field. It's really being knowledgeable, and you can get that beyond certificates. Sometimes certificates just really just help you get your foot in the door. If you're open to boot camps, I'm not going to say no to those. Don't expect it's going to tell you and show you every single thing that you can do in this industry, but boot camps can be helpful. They can be beneficial if you don't know where to start as well. Using things such as LinkedIn Learning, Pluralsight, these subscription sites where you can where you can have a subscription for like maybe up to $50 a month, not including a trial period. Those sites, I would consider it an investment in your potential career. Maybe try one of those sites for like a month, because you get access to all of these different videos. That includes Coursera as well. If you're a student, there's opportunities to use your student account to maybe get free resources. But those are things as well that if you don't know where to start, maybe take a month, sign up for one of those subscriptions, go through the videos and see is there anything, and try to go through one of those courses. And you might find out, hey, I don't like it, but you only spent like maybe $50 for the month to find that out, or maybe you find something else you didn't think about. So I know it's easy to say just go spend $50, not saying it is, but just from a I spend money on a lot of things, and I consider that investment in myself. So there's things that if I didn't spend money on, I probably wouldn't know as much, right? You can try to Frankenstein yourself knowledge on YouTube. You can be a YouTube warrior, of course, definitely. But sometimes going through a course is helpful. Not always for me, but it just depends on the instructor as well. So. Like I said, and it could be because I've been in the industry for so long. I have no certificates to my name, and I've been able to pivot across multiple different jobs. So maybe I did just get lucky, but still today I find people that don't have certificates and they are getting jobs. Some of that has to do obviously with who do you know. Some of that also has to do with your portfolio, like how are you showing you know these things? Because I've seen people get jobs without having certificates, but they've been able to showcase, hey, this is something I actually worked on. And that can be individual as well, especially with that's where you might want to look into venture startups. Obviously, that could be a scary world to be in, but of the venture startup, they don't necessarily have those type of requirements that enterprise companies do as well. And it's slightly different world as far as employment, because sometimes you might like get stock options or things like that, as opposed to not having a 401k, of course. But there are options outside of the regular corporate world, I guess is what I'm saying. The corporate world, yeah, you're probably going to have, recruiters are going to put anything on a resume, and usually it's going to be stuff that doesn't necessarily align with the job. And you need to have 5 years experience of this thing that just came out last year. And they're going to have these certifications that they don't even know about. But that's just to get through the corporate filler. Um, Recruiting companies. Because who did I start off with when my career? I started out with tech systems. Uh, that actually no, that's false. That's false. I started on a government contract in 2012, and then like 2 years later, I went with a recruiter, Tech Systems. That's how I got my foot in the door more as well. So, but yeah, sorry, I became a little rant right there because there's no one way as far as getting into cybersecurity. I would say now is a good time where you can, maybe try to create some. Hey, I've gone through this course, or I try to create this thing, or just try to stay up to date on the news when it comes to cybersecurity, because there's just so much happening every single day, and that's always going to be a thing in this industry is trying to stay up to date. You're not going to know every single thing, but try to find a sector or a niche that you kind of focus on. Open source vulnerabilities, that's like the biggest thing right now with all these automated tools. Oh, sorry. So let's go back. Got on a little bit of a rant there. So certificate, run these two commands. So this is downloading this from my machine. It's basically hosting the file. And then it's importing it into my certificate store. So we're going to go ahead and copy this. And go over here. And I should have that file. LAN. Oh, it went to the temporary directory. That's why. So not in this directory. There's a temp directory on Windows, on Linux, and whatnot. And then we go ahead and it's all certificate. Because I'm not in a elevated terminal. Okay, so it now has imported that certificate. Now I want to see, can I access those machines? I want to say it was piehole.lan or Proxmox. Yeah, we'll do piehole first. And most likely I'm going to have to refresh my browser. Let's go ahead and go in. Yes, and it probably still has the old certificate. As /admin. All right, let's go ahead and take a look. Details and the MK cert. So that's exactly what I want to see. It's coming from the Odyssey machine, and this was created today, so I can see when it was issued. I did have a previous certificate that I created, so that is valid. Let's see. And then you can see your public key, your certificate, as well as your public key. So I might grab that and ask. And again, these things are locally, so that's fine. Let me open up another browser just to make sure. So sometimes you want to make sure things aren't cached. So what I say, piehole.lan. And there we go. All right, so it says still has an issue with the certificate. So let's go ahead and go back. Certificates not valid in browser. Public key. And again, I would only do this for self-hosted labs. I would not do this on any company hardware and whatnot. I've been used to I'm used to like blowing away my infrastructure and reinstalling my operating system. So for me, I'm willing to take the risk. But normally, especially if you're just getting into these tools, I would not recommend this approach at all. I've just gone through the gambit enough, and I know what the tools are doing for the most part. So I'm willing to take that risk. So let's see here. So this has no wild card. No wild card. Yeah. So with MK Cert, you can have and actually, let me go to the GitHub for MK Cert. It's just a way to create local certificates, and you can have a wildcard. So I can have a domain that's just called .lan. Oh, it'd be star.lan. So any self-hosted application that I have, it can have its own subdomain. So piehole.lan, nginx.lan, proxmox.lan. So it's one of the I do enjoy using this tool. Also, sure, I've used it for a couple of years now. You can also use OpenSSL to create your own certificate as well, but this just makes it a lot easier, in my opinion. Okay. Okay, hasn't changed, so I don't need to reinstall. It's already on. Hard refresh, so let's see. No update there. Close this out. Do a Control R. And let me do a flush DNS while I'm here. ipconfig flush DNS. And actually, I should have done this here. I should do an NS lookup. So it does go to that machine. So what happened was, because Pi-hole is now set up, OpenSense is set up to use Pi-hole as my DNS. So it did get that record correctly, that goes to that machine, but still just having issues with the Nginx certificate. So that's what we're trying to solve. Let me quickly go over to my OpenSense. I'm going to go take a look at that in that record. Just got to log back in. Let's go to system settings, general. Okay, I can share my screen again. So here in the settings of OpenSense and then general, what you can do is you can set up your DNS servers as well as fallback DNS servers. So it looks like this one is incorrect. That was my previous Pi-hole DNS. So I think the local one is still running. I should be able to check that. Oh, because it's a Docker. Yeah, hold on one second. Yeah, okay, all right. Da, da, da. Don't use local DNS. Now I'm going to go to my services, unbound DNS, query forwarding. Yeah, so I think it's using the wrong DNS. So 120. And then and I can always go to my Proxmox machine as well. Let's go to 201. Because I didn't ask it to um, delete my on or my Docker containers on the host. So I think there's just a conflict as well between the DNS entries. So let's take a look at Pi-hole. This is where we can confirm. I can log in. By default with LXC machines, the password is, oh, wait a minute, because I did have it set up the password and I didn't get that. All right, 1 second. Yeah, because when you create a Linux machine, it does ask you for the password. So I did not specify that. So it probably auto-generated it. Let me see. What was the password used for the LXC machines during creation? All right. Password 10 pass. That's the root password on both. You should change it. Run this check. Okay, just said temp pass. Let's see if that's valid. And by default, the account is root. And yep, so that's accurate. So do an IPA, and this just verifies that this is the IP address here. So I'm going to grab this. Let's say HTTP 10.0.0.10 admin. Okay, nothing there. So it's probably running on another port. Oh, what is the command? TLPN? Okay, SS-TLUTULNP. This is going to show you what ports are open on your machine. So I can see DNS port 53 is for DNS. 443, so HTTPS and port 80 are open, but I'm not getting a response. And it is bound on all interfaces. That what 0.0.0.0 means is that it's not just local, it is externally accessible. So let's do a curl localhost. And we do get that there, so that works. Curl. Right, and then -K. Right now I'm just testing the browser from the command line. So localhost seemed to work. It's not going to have that certificate, so that's kind of what's happening there. So I should at least be able to see this HTML. So what is going on? Make sure I put the IP address in correctly. 10.0.10. There we go. Gotcha. That's what we want to see. And then it should be /admin. So this gets you to Pi-hole. There's a domain error thing, but I'll take care of it. Well, actually, let's go into settings. You can see your local DNS records. So if I added local records, I can do that there. So yeah, so we just need to get the TLS working. So let's go to Nginx. Make sure we can get in roots. Root temp pass IPA, and then that is 20. ls change directory etc nginx, and then I can do a cat or even a more on the nginx.config file. And see what we have here. Virtual host, and it probably didn't put it in this. There should be a sites, either sites enabled or sites available. Let's first go to sites available. And there I see the records for the two sites, Pi-hole.lan and Proxmox.lan. So let's do a more on Pi-hole. .lan, and there's a certificate, and it should pass it through. You know what the issue is? There is no record in Pi-hole. I'm looking at it right now. There's no DNS record because what's happening is OpenSense goes to Pi-hole, but with no record here, it shouldn't know how you even get to that machine. So what's interesting is my Jesus Christ, what was that? NS lookup did get there. All right, so then let's do a nginx.lan. And so they're both going to Pi-hole, but we're not getting, the TLS still isn't working. And this is part of troubleshooting. Like I could obviously ask the tool, but I'm trying to think it out of what's happening here. Let me go back and try it again with Pi-hole.lan. And so it's going to 120. And the answer is probably right in front of my face. I'm probably just thinking about this too hard. This is my certificate. Where's the subject? But actually, this certificate shouldn't be from this machine, right? Actually, yeah. I thought the certificate was going to get created on Nginx, and I think that's where the issue is. Because it's using, yes, so it should be from this machine. Because I bet you, if anything, those don't match up. Let me cat this. Cat Etsy Nginx certs lan.cert. There's a certificate. See that. So here's alternative names. Yeah, I think just looking at these DNS records, this is from, I'm pretty sure this is from my host machine and not from Nginx. All right. I believe the cert that is being used is from the MK cert that's local and not from the Nginx LXC machine. Can you confirm? Because to me, that would make sense. Because I do have MKCert installed on this machine. So again, we're trying to migrate to the new system. So I think there's just a little confusion here. All right. Serving it by which is LAN you downloaded. The local machines is a separate, unrelated. The browser touch issue with something else. Publicly reported doesn't match either, which suggests the browser showing the certain details for what you installed on Windows, not what Nginx is serving. Tree. Yeah, exactly. So it should be at Nginx, but I'm seeing at Odyssey. So let me go check my certificates again. So this is more of a local issue here. Bum, 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 certificates. Yeah, I do. That's interesting. So I do see it. The browser isn't updated. Okay. I do see it. Let me open up a brand new browser. I do see that cert locally. However, browser is still serving. Oh, did not change the screen, so back. So yeah, so I'm telling you, I do see this certificate at HAL 9000 at Nginx. I do see that in my Windows trusted certificates store, but the browser is still serving the old certificate, and I've done it with Chrome as well as Edge, and I've done it in incognito mode as well. So let's let it see what's going on there, because so far it seems like I've done the right things. Like, so I do have the proper certificate. Something is being held in the browser for some reason. Okay. And yeah, so Nginx is still running on this machine. Okay. We're trying to understand how would that interact if we've updated. It is the OpenSense issue. So I'm getting confused because OpenSense is still pointing at 120. OpenSense DNS is still pointed at this machine. That's what's happening. So let me go back over to my OpenSense and I'll show you. I saw it earlier, but again, it was right in front of my face. General. Yeah, so it's still pointed at this machine instead of the 10 machine. So just seeing, does it understand it? I could obviously make the change here, but just seeing, does the tool understand? Windows wasn't generated from it. It still has the old servers need to force a full reconfig, not just a restart. Yep, so it found it that the name server was incorrect. And again, are there things that I can manually do? Yes, but the goal of this is seeing, what can this AI agent do? Because the idea is that it's still the agent in my basement. I want it to be able to access and take care of my home network infrastructure. So trying to see where some of the gaps are. It could be my instructions as well, but in this case, it seemed like it didn't understand that there was a separate location in OpenSense for that DNS setting. Find out where OpenSense actually generates sales for it from. And this is a good example as well how sometimes AI tools they can do a little bit more than they need to. Like I said, I could clearly go and make that change, but I'm trying to see, hey, can it solve the issue? And this is also why, again, self-hosted hardware would never want to do this on company hardware. Okay, it says OpenSense was updated. Let's do a refresh to see is that true, and then that is true. So this is really all I had to do. There's two places to verify. So here, as well as coming into services, unbound DNS, query forwarding, and then it has that as well. And we can see these internal names are updated as well. Perfect. So let's go ahead and try it again. Go ahead and clear this out. And I'll probably have to terminate my browser. Clear all of that out. Fingers crossed. Ooh. Still no. All right, see what is it serving? And it's still serving Odyssey. Let's do a new incognito window. Do the exact same thing. And getting the exact same issue and problem. And I can't even, let's see, proceed. Now it does let me proceed. Okay, it's good there. And then let me try it in another browser. Sometimes things just get cached and it takes a minute to update. I know, so still the same thing. Let's open up NS lookup again. NS lookup is fine. Let's go to, let's see, Docker PS. Looking at my Docker containers. So let's do a Docker stop Nginx. Oh, what is it called? Nginx proxy. Docker stop Nginx proxy. Okay. Close that, close that. New incognito window. Interesting. So why isn't that coming? So turning off the Nginx on my machine shouldn't have done anything. So let's see flush DNS. Okay. Yeah, very interesting because it's going to the correct machine here. But the browser can't resolve it. And then when we did HTTP 10.0.10.20, we're able to get here this way. The terminal works, the browser doesn't. The browser doesn't even know about the that doesn't that doesn't make sense. Let's do proxmox.lan 006. Nope. Let's see. Am I on? Yep, connected. Tail scale. I wonder if anything was going on because I was using tail scale before the other day. But yeah, still doesn't make sense that if anything, the NS lookup should fail as well. That should totally fail. Let's do WSL-D to bring up my WSL instance. Curl, well, and it's also a NS lookup. Whole.plan. Actually, I don't need that whole thing. I just need curl. Oh, not. Now I'm confusing myself. Sudo apt install. I need these utilities so that I can do an NS lookup from WSL. Sudo apt update. There we go. All right. Server Okay, now this is going at 10. Why? Makes no sense. 192.168.1.1. Where is this dot 10 coming from? Okay, let's go ahead and paste that in there. Goes down. Still having the same issue in the browser. Here is my attempts at NS lookup within WSL. And then I do a colon and then I wrap it around quotations. There we go. All I can think of is that my local NS lookup is wrong and it should be failing and something's cached. But I already flushed the DNS. That's what's the weird thing. Only other thing I can think of is that, well, no, I don't have my DNS hard coded. Okay. Let's see what it comes back with. Issues internal server refers to whatever DNS Windows put into the old Pi-hole machine, which returns OpenSense is correct, but nothing on Ubuntu is asking for it. Yeah, okay, so something weird is going on with my local machine, potentially. Because I've done things where I've had like Tailscale installed as well, so I think I have some conflicting settings. But I'm gonna go take a look at that really quick. Where's my Ethernet properties? Nope, my DNS is empty there. And I'm not using IPv6. I'll just show real quick what I'm troubleshooting. Essentially, I've opened up my networking adapter settings for my hardline Ethernet, and I've come over here. I'm looking at properties, and I can see I've not set my DNS. I'm going to disconnect my Tailscale. Make sure I'm also not on a VPN. Tailscale disconnect. Okay. Okay. Okay, it's working now. Yeah, so I think it's my tail. I was on Tailscale. There's some things because I want to access it externally. So now it looks like it's working. Now I'm on proxmox.lan, and now let's try Pi-hole. Pi-hole.lan. Yep. So yeah. So if I were to connect again, all right. Yeah. So that was the issue there. So I need to go ahead and disconnect from Tailscale. So I'll have to do another configuration to update that. I thought it carried over, but I want to be able to use the same Pi-hole.lan or another to access these machines externally. So that is working. So it did everything correct except for the original DNS. Moving that over, the other issue was completely on me and my settings. The issue was that I was connected to Tailscale on my host machine. And I think Nginx does not have Tailscale installed. I have it installed on my agent machine. So that's one thing I did forget in all of this. I believe I forgot that I had Tailscale installed on this machine, but that was not a part of the migration or the Nginx Docker container at all. We can work on that later if that was indeed the cost. And I write it down like this, so as a way for it to maybe potentially remember that in the future. So basically our goal was accomplished. It did create those two containers. So the migration of Pi-hole and Nginx. Yes, DNS overrides. Yeah, so you notice it saved it to the memory. So that's why it's good to kind of word your things in a way where it's going to be like, oh, okay. And then it'll just go ahead and remember that. And it's actually gone ahead and it's creating a file for that. So we have accomplished the first part of the migration. Even when I say proxmox.lan, I think I need to do HTTPS, proxmox.lan. It even set it up where I don't even need to put in the 8007. So Nginx has handled that redirect for me. So let me just go ahead and log back in, zoom in, and then sure enough, yeah. So these two things I would consider accomplished. So it has now added those two containers, and the next step would then be migrating our other machines as well. But I'll say that for a future video. What I can also do while I'm in Proxmox, I can go to folder or tag view, so you can actually tag these items. It looks like I did use a community script for, oh, that's my previous Pi-hole, which I can go ahead and remove. So let's come over here and I'm going to, it's already stopped. So what we do is we click more and then you say remove, and then you need to put in the container ID. So this is 101. So I remove that old container. I'm going to go ahead and stop some of these other things as well that I no longer need. This riddle box. And I'm going to go ahead and this one I'm going to rename options. And how do I rename the machine? Resources, network, DNS. DNS might end up doing it. But this is like my demo agent machine. There we go. And I can go ahead and stop that machine. And we'll go ahead and remove the riddle box machine 104. And so, yeah, so the first part of the migration is done now. Slow. My wife's dancing over here in the corner. So yeah, so what I'm doing is trying to move over the infrastructure apps first, and then I'm going to move over some more of my self-hosted applications. But the goal of this video was, hey, can my AI agent access and manage my OpenSense machine as well as my Proxmox server and do a network migration? So that has been accomplished, and as well as having a TLS certificate. So if I wanted to access these machines on other devices, I would have to add that TLS certificate because it's entirely local. I could also have an external TLS certificate if I wanted, and that would be a little bit easier, but I'd have to go and purchase a TLS certificate. And we did find out the issue or the error why I could not access the server in the browser was because I had Tailscale connected on my current machine, but I did not take that migration over when it came to being in Proxmox. So it was truly looking at a different domain name. So yeah, so that has been solved. It looks like I'm ready to move forward in my next videos, continuing to do more of the home network automation. I'll probably be updating the Claude files, but what we want to do is slowly bring over more of our apps, and eventually we're going to add more nodes to our Proxmox environment. So it really won't matter what machines these exist on because they're going to have shared storage, and then we're also going to have a backup situation as well. So this is just the first part of rebuilding out my home lab and network. So with that said, thank you for stopping by, watching. Those that did comment, appreciate the conversation. Those person that was looking to get into cybersecurity, nothing but the best of luck. There's a lot of resources online, free and paid. The biggest challenge is going to really find what niche in the cybersecurity field interests you, because there's so many things. There's blue teaming, there's red teaming, there's purple teaming, there's general security scanning. There's all these type of things and roles. The great thing is that you do have access to a lot of tools, a lot of resources. It just depends on which ones interest you. So nothing but the best of luck. Continue to, you know, find a community that helps as well. Talking about cyber security, right? It's more like water cooler talk. The more you talk about it, the more you understand what's going on in the industry. So whether it's Discord channels, peers, just finding general meetup groups, definitely recommend that. And going to a cybersecurity conference would probably be something that's and there's usually there's in like most major cities, if that's an appetite that you have, because then you get to really have that real world experience with people in the industry and going to those conversations or those panels. And then of course there's, you can look at just what happened with Google I/O recently, like watching those conferences. So being in cybersecurity is very proactive. You kind of have to have your finger on the pulse to understand what's going on, because it's changing so rapidly right now. So again, had a little rant there at the end as well. But I do love the industry. It's been great to me, and I think it's a good career field to be in. So with that said, this is the end of the stream. Thanks for watching and stopping by. Catch you guys in the next one. With that said, take